1:39 p.m. And let's see. Andrew, would you bring up the agenda, please?
May I do the roll call?
Yes.
Director McGorty?
Here.
Director Crane is absent at the moment. Director White?
Here.
Director Green has resigned. And Director Robinson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Yes, we do.
Very good. So I'm not looking at the agenda. I haven't pulled that up. So why don't you go ahead and do that, Andrew, if you can.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble sharing the screen right now. There we go.
Okay, so next is Pledge of Allegiance. So Nicole, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, with liberty, under God, one nation. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
And to the republic.
And to the republic. I'm so
for
sorry.
Which it
stands one nation, indivisible. I'm sorry. I don't know what my deal is. Can we do it together, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America and to the republic
for which it stands
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry about that.
No, don't worry, Nicole. We'll send you back for a remedial Pledge Allegiance class.
Sorry, I was just in the middle of trying to get all the minutes flushed out and it just kind of caught me. Sorry about that.
That's
Nicole,
okay.
you were not paying attention in elementary school.
I guess not. You know, I always have to say it in French because I had French class during the pledge hour. So maybe we should have done it in French, but that kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. Okay. Approval of minutes from June 10th, 2021 meeting. Is there any corrections or otherwise things to note?
I didn't see any. I'll move to approve.
Any other observations? Otherwise, does anyone have a second?
So this is Amber, Mendocino County Water Agency, Amber Facette. Because we can approve all the consent items together as a consent calendar. Although we have one change to note to the agreement, the license agreement with the city of Ukiah. They requested that we add some last minute insurance language, which is all pretty standard, but we do have it available to share. Andrew, can you share that so the board can see what we're changing?
This is the City of Ukiah license agreement, and item 6B, there's additional insurance language, naming the city as an additional insurer to DWR's insurance or the drilling insurance policy. And then there is also a letter restating that fact sent by DWR on behalf of their drillers.
And these insurance requirements have been reviewed by county council and by county risk management as well.
I'm sorry, everyone. It's just one of those days. So I lost connectivity, but I'm back. So when I last was here, we were about to talk about taking on all the consent items together.
Yeah, I was stating that there's one change to item, let's see, to 3D, the license agreement with the city of Ukiah and DWR. where, because the city requested that we add some pretty standard insurance language to the agreement, which Andrew is showing up here on the screen, and it has been vetted through county council and county risk management as to the form of it.
Okay. Any questions from anyone on this?
Yeah, I have one question. In the 3B, the agreement number 0035, the DWR and the GSA agreement. Just one question, when I was reading through it, the drilling is to be done between June and August. And do we expect that to actually happen? I don't think anything has started yet. We are still signing the agreements with the people that we need to sign agreements with. Does anybody know when we expect to see that drilling actually begin?
We're hoping to start this month. I don't know if it'll all be done by then. We have spoken with DWR though, and there doesn't seem to be any issues with flexibility on it getting done.
Okay. The other question that came up when I read through it was they're covering the costs except for a $50,000 charge for the GSA for the monitoring. And is that 50,000 anticipated to be this year, or is that over the duration? I believe it was a 3-year or something.
That's the estimated ongoing monitoring costs of the wells for the next 5 years.
5 years, yes.
Yeah.
So there's no actual.
That's not a payment that the GSA needs to make to DWR. That is just the estimated cost to the GSA for monitoring these wells in the future.
So at some point, we'll have to pay for that, but we don't have to pay for it all, and we don't have to pay for it right now.
Correct.
Okay, that answers everything I have. I'm fine with it then.
That monitoring number is somewhat similar to some other numbers that have been floating around for annual or perhaps semi-annual costs.
Yeah, Zach, I think I can jump in. It's pretty much it's pretty much the same. So and again, it's an estimate, might be more or less changing every year, but it's consistent also with what we shared with you.
One question, Laura, is I know that we've talked a lot about one of the larger costs that we would incur over the duration is the maintenance of the model. And this in no way supports or funds in any way that. Is that correct? So we're still looking for a way to pay for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is really for the monitoring. Thinking somebody from RCD or whoever that goes out twice per year to download the data or go out for maintenance if something breaks, and that's the reason why cost might be maybe 1 year is very small, 1 year is larger because something breaks. So, but it's really purely, and it's an estimate, so it's gonna be somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, are we still on consent items? All right, so any more questions? If not, I would move to accept a motion to approve the consent items.
Move to approve consent items.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and approved to accept the consent items. All roll call vote, I guess. Amber?
Director McGorty,
Yes?
Director White,
Yes.
Director Robinson.
Yes.
Motion carries with Director Crane absent.
Okay, action items, discussion and possible appointment of tribal stakeholder director and alternate tribal stakeholder director. Any movement on this?
Currently, Chairman Gordy, this is Andrew Bake, Mendocino County Water Agency. Currently, we have approval of nomination by the Coyote Valley Rancheria and the Redwood Valley Rancheria, who originally nominated Eddie Navarez. We have an abstention of vote from, or sorry, Coyote Valley has abstained their vote. And then Pinoleville Pomo Nation has declined the nomination. Potter Valley has approved the nomination, and we have received verbal approval from the Hopland tribe, but no written approval. And the efforts to contact them this past month have been unsuccessful. So if we get approval from the Hopland tribe, we will be able to move forward the nomination.
Okay, so we're about halfway there from the sounds of it. So we still need one more of the tribal groups to approve of the nomination. Okay. All right, well, we can't take any action on that until that comes through. So next will be a presentation and ratification of facilitation support services application to Department of Water Resources. Laura, is it?
No, I believe this is.
I think it's Amber.
Yes, so this is Amber Fassett, Mendocino County Water Agency. In the application or in the agenda packet, you'll see a facilitation support services application. Water agency staff had a meeting with DWR between this meeting and the last meeting to discuss the services that they can provide to the GSA. It's another program like the technical support services program that doesn't cost the GSA anything, and they can send in a professional facilitator they won't actually come up with the ideas or things like that for us or do the work, but they will help to facilitate us through the process. And we think that at no cost to us, it could be a really valuable service. So we went ahead, because time is really of the essence, and submitted an application, which we're requesting the board ratify. And we can withdraw the application if the board decides that it's not a service we want to pursue. But we asked for help in public outreach facilitation to get more public outreach, more tribal participation, and facilitation at our meetings in the, determining what our funding mechanism is going to be. So those are the three main services that we asked for. We did receive confirmation from DWR that they received our application, but besides that, we haven't had any more communication with them since. But they thought the process usually takes about 1 to 2 months. And so we expect that if the board would like to pursue this by next month, sometime we could have their services in place.
Okay, any discussion from board members? Good idea, bad idea?
I can give you some comment. How many that are here today were here when we had the first exposure to when they passed the Sigma law, and we had to talk about forming a GSA, and we had a facilitator at that time. I don't know if anybody was around. I think you were, Glenn. And that, to my sense, was a little helpful, but not a whole lot. It was better than nothing. And I imagine this will be better than nothing also.
Sounds like a strong endorsement. In general, I think that facilitators are very helpful, but they need a little bit of background information to really be good. And that's where staff and the chair have to spend some time with them to make sure that they come in prepared and ready to help and having an understanding of our situation. So I think that would make the process a little bit better. But I agree with you that it's always great to have a facilitator who is good at leading people through a process, if there is a process, and it sounds like there is one for this. So, myself, I think it's a good idea. Any other comments?
My understanding, there's no fiscal impact for this, so I have no concerns.
Well, then I would entertain a motion if someone wants to make one to work with the Department of Water Resources and have facilitation support services.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Nicole, roll call vote.
Director McGorty,
Yes.
Director White,
yes.
Director Robinson.
Third, yes.
Motion carries with Director Crane absent.
Next item on the agenda is receive update from the Financial Ad Hoc Committee and discussion and possible direction regarding funding for the implementation of Groundwater Sustainability Plan and annual Groundwater Sustainability Agency administration costs. Who would like to speak on this?
I'll go ahead and speak to that. This
Okay.
ad hoc committee got together a week, 10 days ago. It was the first get together of the group. There will be additional meetings to continue the conversation. The direction of the first conversation identified the need to get a sense, additional information about what we foresee the budgetary needs being, particularly for the monitoring. We are getting an opinion from the RCD on that with the exact number of wells and that type of material to help them give a good estimate of what they think a cost would look like. That's not a solicitation or a commitment of any form with the RCD, but they certainly have experience doing this, and we thought they might be useful to give us a ballpark number. The other part of the discussion is what the funding mechanism might look like. The majority of the conversation had to do with whether or not the existing composition of this board would have the ability to self-fund. That kind of depends on what the budget looks like. So there was certainly no decision or recommendation about self-funding, but that's where the majority of the conversation was. There is no date for the next follow-on to that meeting, but I imagine it would be certainly before the next board meeting that we do.
I'd just like to add to the conversation a little bit. I've been thinking about this a lot because recently we've brought back to life the Mendocino County Water Agency. We're managing it right now with the program manager, Josh Metz, who worked with me on the Navarro watershed ag water use study, which some of you remember. I know Josh and Al both contributed to that, at least their input and opinions, which were valuable. And I've thought a lot about this, and the thing that's striking about Mendocino County is that we haven't done a very good job of investing in water, and it's going to be really awful this year, particularly in the coastal areas and Mendocino and Fort Bragg. They're going to run out of water, and there's been no investment on their part. At some point, it costs to have these things, and we have to start thinking about paying for them and not kind of hoping somehow or other it's all going to work out. And if it turns out that we have to have a water user tax or something like that, we better start thinking about it, because I think this is really going to be critical to our well-being. And I know that we've worked really hard as an organization to hold our costs down and be really efficient with the money that we get through grants and everything. But I know we're all kind of struggling with this, but at some point we just have to face the reality that everyone's going to have to pay if we're required by law to monitor our groundwater and be sure that we're actually not overdrafting it. There's a cost associated with it, and to kind of give some guidance to the ad hoc, don't be afraid to think about spending money by individuals, and that's should be every water user who takes advantage of water from the Ukiah Valley Basin. And I've come to the realization, sort of the cost of membership to an exclusive club, which is living in Ukiah Valley of Mendocino County, and it's something we're going to have to deal with. Love any feedback you might have.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. The idea of funding it with our member agencies came up in a different context a number of years back when the URWA, the Upper Russian River Watershed Association, JPA, whose goal was to consolidate the members into a single district, was moving in that direction. And the first hurdle was, how do we want to pay for this? And the idea was floated that maybe you just look at the relative size of the budgets, because there were large districts and small districts, districts with large budgets, districts with small budgets in the group. And that idea was in the air. It sort of freaked everybody out, and it evaporated along with any movement in that direction until recently, when that idea of consolidation has now become active again. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I think you could, if we needed to self-fund, that we could look at it from that standpoint. I know that the big budgets are not my member agency, so I think it's a good idea. But anyway, that's kind of where it comes down. It's going to come down to that, something like that. That's all I got.
Glenn and Al, I'll make sure that those perspectives are aired the next time I participate in that conversation. A few other nuances that I can certainly share. Ag has some hesitation about taxes and fees and that type of stuff. There's no surprise there, I don't think. There was also a recognition that what we commit to at this early stage is not what we're necessarily going to be doing as soon as 3 or 4 years down the line. And our budgetary consultant, John, is his last name Fisk? I don't remember exactly. He pointed out that you're welcome at any point to make changes. And I think Laura pointed out, sorry, Laura, if I'm putting words in your mouth, I'm not positive it was you. It might have been John, actually, now that I think about it. But it is important that what we put together has enough backbone or legitimacy behind it today that it's not going to interfere with getting our plan approved by DWR.
That's very important.
So what do we want to do at this point? What instructions do we want to give to the ad hoc committee, if any? I know this is really difficult. I know we're struggling this because I think we all feel like we pay a lot of taxes and fees, and I know the last thing we want to do is make everybody mad at us because we say something costs money and we got to pay for it. But honestly, we suffer when we don't deal with something, when we're not honest about it, and we don't really say this costs, we have to find a way to pay for it that's equitable. And it comes down, to proportionate users probably. The more you use, the more you should pay is a very fair concept. And I think it also includes urban users because they certainly benefit from the work that this agency is going to do to maintain stable water levels in the basin. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. And I'm not offended if someone says, yeah, it's fair that everybody who has a water meter should pay, X number of dollars a year at probably a pretty nominal fee of $10 or something to be sure that we can fund this agency. And politically, I can certainly justify it, as your supervisor for First District, I certainly would say this is something we have to do. And, it's not what we want to do, but come on, making sure that we have a dependable water supply that's safe for us to drink. We're really seeing how important that is this year because there's going to be some communities that are going to really struggle by the time this year is over. So that's my thinking.
Glenn, do you have an opinion about tax versus fee?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so that's a question for county council. And I like the idea of more of people who are using the resource paying a fee. Have you thought about it at all, Zach?
Yeah, one of the challenges I think is going to be that word you use, meter.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the cost of installing and taking some measurements from a meter is going to far exceed the amount of money we're talking about. So it presents a certain hurdle. And we can learn from the flood control district on that point. The other thing too is there's the de minimis users sneak their way into this conversation frequently. And it's something we have a rough estimate of the count. We really don't know who these people are, but also when you think about in terms of who users are and who's getting benefit, there's that group as well. And they're somewhat invisible. So that's another topic that kind of gets intertwined into this, trying to prorate or share on a fairness basis. Mm-hmm. There's a whole group that's missing.
Yeah, I think that obviously, if you ask a person to kick in a large amount of money, you're going to have a lot of resistance. If you're asking them to kick in a very small amount of money, it won't be so hard to take. So to get to any given number, you either got to have a whole lot from a few people or a little bit from a large number of people. And the idea of a meter, I agree that small users, the meter hardly pays. I think that, if you try to spread it out as wide as possible, anyone who uses water, which pretty much covers everybody. And then, it's sort of like the fee that you have when you hook up to like your water district. There's like a fixed amount of money that is charged, whether you use any water or not. And then there's your usage on top of that. So if you had a fixed charge that was small but covered everybody, you'd probably get a pretty good ways towards where you're trying to get. And then, users over a certain amount could be asked to contribute based on their usage. And so you wouldn't need to be tracking everybody, just the larger users. That's one thought that I think I could live with.
Yeah, I think proportional use is a good way to do it. I'm not necessarily saying that everything's got to be metered. And just like the State Water Resources Control Board says, if you're pumping under 10 acre feet per year, you don't need a meter. But as soon as you get above that, you do. And there could be some minimums. But I like the idea that everybody contributes because everybody uses water, and this is a resource that's used by everybody here in the Ukiah Valley Basin. So, any other comments from board members? Yeah, I would like to open it up to the general public if there's public comments. Okay, Beth.
Thank you. So I was a participant in the ad hoc committee, and I wanted just to share a couple of thoughts that I brought up there, which were that some of these the project and management actions are very, very important because they sort of put it out into the universe. Like these are the projects that we could do if the funding came through. And the consultants have been great about helping us prioritize those projects, and they will continue to do so. Within those projects, for example, we worked up one that's a well survey, essentially. So doing a survey of all of the wells in the basin, what their status is, and then feasibility of doing a fee program of some sort, so that the grant money would cover the cost of figuring out if it's feasible to have a fee on a well. And there's different stages of that. You could put a meter on it, which, as Zach mentioned, is really difficult, very time consuming and expensive. But you could also have a general use fee, as Al was describing, and the consultants had talked about that as well. But within those project and management actions, there's the potential to have a lot of creative projects that would assist the GSA in developing the funding for the future. Also, within those projects, some of them might require for model maintenance as they go. So let's say in year 3, we do a project, but the model needs to be calibrated or upgraded or data inputted, somehow in order for that project to move forward. That's included in the cost then of the grant. So there's really creative ways that we can fold these operational costs into outside funding, which there is quite a lot coming through, and Senator McGuire's office is looking to us to say, hey, what projects would you like us to support with the budget money that's coming through? So just keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we know that there's going to be funding coming through Drought, as well as funding to support GSA. So
right.
That still remains a significant source. But I'm assuming at some point there still has to be sort of a basic ground floor operational cost that is paid for locally, and we've discussed that is somewhere between $100,000 to $200,000 is sort of our guesstimate. I mean, at least in my mind, that's how I think about it, and that's where we have to have an ongoing sustainable cost.
Right, and so we did talk about that, as Zach mentioned, about the budget, and since that meeting, in conversations with the consultants and the county staff, it seems like we may have lowballed some of the estimates on that budget. So really, fleshing out the cost estimates is going to be a big part of this. And then moving forward, once we have an idea of what the budget really is, the committee can then look at the equal contributions or some sort of prorated based on benefits that are gained from each agency. But we just don't have enough information for that at the moment. And the other thing just to keep in mind is that if the DWR doesn't like the proposed funding, it'll come back. We'll have to try to figure something else out. So we want to have a really robust funding plan in the initial GSP, I believe. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Sean, you're next up.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. First of all, I agree with you, and I'm certainly not shy about investing money in water resources. I think it's important. But this is one area where I think if you just look at the data that we have and some of the preliminary work that Sam did, we don't really have an issue here. And I think it's important that we don't have an issue here and that we track it to make sure we don't have an issue here. But of all of the needs that we have in this county for water and water infrastructure, if I want to go to the mat and look at funding things extensively, in my opinion, this isn't the thing. I think having the RCD track the wells and keep us informed on how and if we're ever approaching any of our thresholds That's important, but I don't think that's super expensive either. I'd rather see us go after substantive money to address other deficiencies, where in this particular circumstance, we got thrown in this bucket because DWR didn't have enough data. So they said, why not? As we've been collecting data and doing the modeling, it already shows that we're already pretty sustainable. There's some projects on the table, I think, that will improve that. But of all of Mendocino County's water needs, this one to me is the one thing that's in pretty good shape. And as long as we keep an eye on it, we're doing all right. That's it.
Thanks, Devin.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, no, I agree with some of the comments that Sean just spoke to. I mean, one of the questions that I wanted to bring back to the committee has to do with, again, thank you for refining the budget. This basin is going to be overlapping, like we talked about in the past, several other key projects that require significant funding, potentially on the surface water front, including the Powder Valley Project, et cetera. So that is something that I think all of us are cognizant of. And that's where, you know, the timing is going to be important as well in terms of, you know, where are we at for looking at like the 218 assessments or doing property taxes? What is the timeline for doing something like that, if that's something we need to go to? I agree with Zach that, you know, metering is probably not the first solution to this process. I think, you know, in talking with, you know, some of my counterparts in other areas of the state, and it has been discussed, I believe here, you know, a lot of the agricultural dependent basins have looked at, you know, a per acre fee versus an actual water use fee, at least in the interim until some of the data can be collected. So I think there's other things to look at within this. And I do fully agree that, you know, keeping this as simple as possible. I mean, a fee should be a fee for service, right? So especially if we can look at what Beth was discussing, you know, a lot of these projects hopefully could be funded in the future through some of these grant available funds that become available. So I don't want to see this entity sort of develop a expanded budget, you know, with a fee structure that goes beyond sort of the basic just functionality of keeping this GSA moving forward in the next 5 years. You know, we don't need to create, ask for more than we need, I guess. And I really, you know, to my mind, haven't really heard of what we truly need. There's some estimates out there, but, you know, going to our membership and saying, well, it could cost us between $100,000 and $500,000. It's a pretty, you know, exaggerating there, but that's a pretty good range, right? So it'd be nice to focus that down a bit, so that I have a little bit more information to go forward and get some feedback on.
Does anybody else care to join in the conversation? I can't see everybody, so if anyone has their hand up.
Hey, Glenn, this is Amir from LWA. I couldn't really raise my hand up, but I just wanted to point out something which is not definite, but for the ad hoc committee to look into, because based on the text of the Sigma law, that de minimis users that are defined to use less than 2 acre-feet per year cannot be imposed fees unless they were regulated before or they are regulated in the GSP specifically. So I just wanted to point this out to be asked in the ad hoc committee from John to be looked into. I know tax might be a bit different, but in terms of fees, unless they are pumping more than 2 acre-feet, it might be difficult based on the law to get fees from them.
So that kind of eliminates the idea that everybody who has a water connection pays a fee for the sustainable groundwater plan, unless the fee is calculated based on the water purveyor, correct? And then they can split it up and charge it part of their fees for delivering service.
I don't know, but that's my understanding based on the law for just the de minimis users. And I'm not 100% on it. I just want the ad hoc committee to be aware and check it for the fees, because it is specifically pointed out in the law that they are exempt unless a regulatory process has been done for them.
Okay. Well, I think we can kind of sum up what I'm hearing, which is basically the discussion is lean towards fees and lean towards sort of the base level, minimum level of of funding for the agency just to basically keep the lights on and the phones available so that we can conduct business. But we're looking really still at grant income to do the heavy lifting when we really have a project that needs substantial money, as opposed to trying to have the membership pay for everything. Am I correct?
And you are correct, Glenn. I think this also has to do with the fact that, like, even some of this emergency drought money, it won't show up for a year or two or maybe even 3, who knows. So there's a short-term need, and then there's a medium or longer-term issue, and they may involve different solutions. So that's somewhat compatible with your recap there.
Okay. Sean, do you still have a question, or you just have your hand up by accident?
Forgot to lower my hand, Glenn, sorry.
No problem. So I did want to circle back just a little bit to the 218 assessment discussion that Devin brought up. And I think this is a time, with the drought going on, I think this is a time where Mendocino County as a whole could really consider some investment in water infrastructure. And the ideas that keep floating both on the coast and in the interior is the ability for us to transfer water between districts. And it's becoming really critical on the coast. It's been on people's minds for a long time, but unfortunately, the coast just really took the position that if they didn't develop water, they wouldn't have development, and they're really paying for it now because their water resources have always been pretty marginal. And this year, the way it looks, Fort Bragg has about maybe a 45 to 60-day supply of water. And Mendocino gets their water from Fort Bragg, so it's not looking good. And for those of you that stick around for a drought meeting, you'll hear more about it. But we're going to have to come up with some real creative solutions to be sure that people can maintain the real minimal amounts of water for health and human safety. And I'm thinking if there was a countywide interest in doing anything with having some sort of a bond measure or other way of raising money for water projects, it's certainly front and center on everybody's mind right now. And I know even in the interior, we still have a bunch of work to do, the Potter Valley project being kind of probably the worst of the bunch, but I still believe in having a way of transferring water inside of our basin. I don't know who would own that or how it would be operated, but I still think it's a good idea. And it could be that we will have opportunities for funding from the state on that, but I support it. We've got it kind of minimally set up. I also support the idea, which I think we can do with PG&E funding, of getting Redwood Valley a permanent water solution. And the one being floated of having them join the Russian River Flood Control District. I guess my comment on that be, why didn't they do that years ago? So I support that. So anything we can do to build water security is going to be really, really critical for us in the coming years. And I think it's worth the investment. We'll never go wrong by having a secure water supply. And this, of course, is an important part of it and why I support this organization. So I'll get off my soapbox and shall we give direction then to the ad hoc committee, basically to say that we support the idea of fees for baseline funding of maintaining the basic functions of the agency, and then look to grant monies to do other activities. Amber, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I have a quick comment. I just wanted to point out that if the board decides to go the direction of a fee or tax, there most likely will be a pretty significant cost associated with that, with implementing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we asked John for an idea of what it would cost, he said somewhere from $50,000 to $100,000. So that's definitely something to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's got to be built into the cost, and in terms of our initial setup and funding for the permanent funding for the organization. So, good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Make a note, ad hoc, as you carry on your good work. All right, so moving on to the next item, which is presentation on the update of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan development and approval of the release of the draft Groundwater Sustainability Plan for public comment. This is Laura.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Glenn. So we don't have a real presentation, but we wanted to tell you a little bit about what was in your board package and how to use the information. What we did for you, we sent you the 2 key chapters that have never been reviewed by the board before on chapter 3, which contains all the description of the sustainable management criteria that we developed together with the TAC. And then chapter 4, which is this list of project and management actions. And basically what we decided to do to make your life a little easier, we also created some kind of summary sheets so that if you don't really want to read the entire 100 or 200 pages, whatever, you can at least get a first feeling just of how it looks like from reading the summaries. And the summaries are organized with one informational sheets for each of the sustainability indicators. And you know, in Ukiah, we could pretty much get rid right away of seawater intrusion, but we included all the others. And then we also made a summary of the project and management action that we discussed with many of you. I want to clarify, the project and management actions are really kind of a big brainstorm list. It's not what it's happening, not only what it's happening right now, not only what there is already funding for, but it's mostly like what we can see as potential. But all these actions will have to go through some kind of feasibility study if we want to make it like a real project. So what we are finishing right now is chapter 2 has been already through some level of reviews in the past, so that's why we didn't include chapter 2. And the only piece that Amir is adding to chapter 2 is the final water budget that the TAC has seen in all the presentation, and it basically is just being transformed from a presentation into a few pages of text. And then chapter 1 and chapter 5 are more administrative related type of chapter, with chapter 1 is just describing the GSA formation and this type of all the meetings that have been done, and the communication and engagement plan that we worked on at the very beginning of our contract. And chapter 5 is a lot of the implementation. So with the idea of how the GSA is thinking about implementing the GSP starting February 2022. So the main appendix to chapter 5 is really John's report with the financing component, because that's really what makes the difference. And so what we are looking for is for an approval to from the board to release the draft, considering that this is the draft that the technical advisory committee and the technical team worked on. So it's not that the board is fully approving the draft. Probably you will have to see the public comments for really approving what's going out, I guess. So we kind of walk backward from the January 31st deadline. So we figure that releasing the draft beginning of August is probably what give us enough time to then reconsider comments and board comments in September, October. And yeah, this is pretty much, I think we are really kind of in the final push of this GSP development. There will be still few appendices that maybe will come down the road, but most of them will be there. I think Amir still needs time to finish the full model description appendix, but the others are pretty much all there. So this is kind of the plan, and we just want to see if anybody had comments. I know that you received a lot of material 10 days ago, so we were not expecting you to read through everything, but we just wanted to show that things are kind of moving in the right direction, and we are producing all what it's needed for having this GSP out as a public document. And Amber, correct me if I said something wrong about the process.
Laura, just quickly, which chapter has our triggers and thresholds in it?
Chapter 3.
Awesome.
No, I think that was a good explanation, Laura. Thank you. I essentially, we're asking for, even though you're not seeing the final draft right now, for us to put it out to public comment once it's ready, and then it will be brought back to the board at a later time for actual approval.
So this is a major milestone, and I guess the other thing I'm wondering, are we deliberately sending this to people like the State Water Resources Control Board yet, or do we wait for it to go into its final form, or how do we handle that?
So this one, Glenn, goes out mostly for public comment, and we will be receiving letters, hopefully, who knows, and the comments that we receive on these public draft, and with this I mean we will be ready to send it out, so probably you can still provide comments on what the 2 key chapters that you received last week can still be revised. So we are talking about beginning of August, and it's really mostly for the public comment process. I have no idea if it might be that the North Coast will be commenting on this draft, or they will wait for the official DWR public comment period that will be in after we submit. So it's difficult to say who's gonna provide comments. So it's out for everybody. So that's how it works.
Okay, so I just wondered if we should specifically solicit comments or call people's attention to it.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I mean, I would say that it would be nice to, if we can find some channel to really get comments now and not later, because if it's now, then we still have 3 months to work and change whatever somebody may not like. So because really the idea for going out in August is because we were thinking of giving people time to provide the letters until the week after Labor Day, just to avoid really the week of vacation, which is September 10th, something like that. And then we still have about 3 months for fixing, discussing with you guys. You know, it's not going to be a full rewriting, so the biggest chunk of the work is done, but we can still discuss about a threshold that you may not like, or approaches, or new ideas for PMAs. And yeah, I think, Glenn, if I guess we should advertise to everybody that the draft is out and solicit comments.
Okay, well, I think that's a good idea too. So certainly we should, the usual suspects like our boards of our local water organizations and Farm Bureau, I would hope that it could be included in any communications they have with membership. And I would appreciate our local water community to take the time, if you can, to read through this and you know, given the level of work that's gone into it, it's a really important document for us to take the time to read and annotate, and I strongly recommend it. Any other comments or questions? Let's see, do we need to take any action on this, Amber? Oh, we have a question here from Devin. Sorry.
Yeah, this is for Laura, and I apologize, I didn't read through the entirety of the packet. What is the time frame? Just in trying to, so I get this out in a timely fashion. What is the time frame for you wanting this review process ultimately?
So because you want to provide comments, or in general for the public?
Both, yeah.
So for you, we are really thinking the first week of August is when these things should go out for the for the public. But so if you have big comments ahead of that, you can just contact Amir and I, and we can include it.
Okay.
Otherwise, you still can use the public comment period and provide comments after that. So it's kind of both. Because you have been so involved, if you have something in your mind right away, it might be good to send us a note.
Okay.
And what I want to point out is that the public comments that we received after August, those are the ones that for which we will create a full catalog of who commented, what was the comment, and how we respond. So, and that needs to be part of the GSP to show that we have done all the public outreach and listen to the public. We are still including also the comments that we received from you guys so far. But for those one, basically, it's more an informal list of comments.
Thank you. That just helps. I'll put a ringer on my computer for all those things.
Okay. And I think we were looking at the dates, and we were thinking of asking public comments back by probably September 10 or the following Monday. So one of those 2 days, so that we really don't want to ask September 6 or 7, which is the day after Labor Day, which doesn't look nice.
Yeah, I would recommend the following week.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
That would
Yeah.
be my suggestion. And then after you review and edit the comments, what's the process? Will it come back to the board for final approval?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, Glenn, basically when we get the comments, we create this table with all the comments for you guys to review. And then it might be that we will need, either we do it at the October meeting, we may even need a special meeting just to go through all the comments and get us going. We will have to see, it depends on the amount of comments that we get. And yeah, and then after that is when you guys can approve it. And the approval cannot be before the November board meeting.
Okay.
Laura,
So it's going
I
to
have
be either November or December. Sorry, Al.
Yeah, I have a question. You said that the comments and the response will be part of the GSP. The comments that you've received and responded to so far, are those also part of it? Will they be? So you already have a fair amount, and it'll just be a longer and longer list.
Yeah. The difference is only all that for the comments that we received so far, we have tried to provide an answer to the comment, but it's not really required. For the comments that we received during the public comment period, there will be a little bit more a formal table with a full response to the comments.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other
Chairman,
questions?
to answer your question, we are looking for an action to approve the draft GSP release to the public. The recommended action is receive presentation on the update of the GSP development and approve the draft GSP developed by the technical team and technical advisory committee to be released for public comment following the public meeting to be held on July 15th, 2021.
Move the recommended action.
Is there a second?
Al, does that mean you're moving the exact same language? I want to be careful that we're not necessarily endorsing the plan. All we're saying is that it can be released for public comment. So the words matter to me on this.
Yeah, was there any words in that you felt needed adjusted?
Amber, do you want to reread to that, or is that coming straight off the agenda?
That's coming straight off of the agenda item. Our intention in writing the recommended action is that you were not actually approving the draft. You were just approving the draft developed by the team to be released for public comment.
Is that
I'm reading the
acceptable?
agenda. The words say approve the draft groundwater sustainability plan developed by the technical team and technical advisory committee. I'd much rather say we're just approving the release for public comment of the draft groundwater sustainability plan.
Yeah, that sounds better, actually.
Yeah, we can change that. We just wanted to be clear the reason we added the technical team and the technical advisory committee, because we were trying to clarify that the committee and the team were the ones who were actually developing the draft, as opposed to that the board was actually approving the draft. But we can change the action however you feel most comfortable.
Yes, well, it's really important to note that we're not approving the draft. We're approving the release of it for public review.
Exactly. So Al, if you want to modify your motion, I can second it.
Well, I'm not clear that we don't want to do the recommended action, in that we feel if we're releasing it for public review, we must be comfortable that it is of a sufficient quality or whatever, that it should be released for public review. I think that, and for some reason, I'm scrolling through many pages and can't see the written recommended action anywhere because there's so many pages. But are we saying that we don't have it? We're silent on the content, but go ahead and release it to the public.
And Laura, correct me if I'm wrong. I think some of the idea behind that was also that we may receive some input at the public meeting that could be incorporated in before release as well. So that would not be seen by the board prior to it going to public comment.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's really more like probably what Zach means, that basically if somebody needs to be blamed after seeing what it's in the draft, it's us and not you guys. That's which is very important, because in your as the board, you want to be able to see not only the technical teamwork but also the public comments before approving anything. And so it's true, we have presented to you the entire process many times, and some of you also participate in the TAC. So hopefully you feel okay about how the process has happened. And but again, it's very important that here is, I would say, the text is really approval of the release of the draft developed by the technical advisory committee and the technical team for public comment. So
Her word.
Huh?
I move her words. Your
Okay.
words.
I think it's very important, and you have time in November to fully approve the final GSP.
Could I
Yes.
just clarify for the record what we're voting on, just because moving her words isn't super clear for the minutes. What I have written right now is it is ordered that the release of the draft groundwater sustainability plan developed by the technical team and technical advisory committee for public comment following the public meeting to be held on July 15th, 2021 is hereby approved.
Yeah, Nicole, that's perfect. I think that's perfect.
I do
Okay.
too. That's my motion.
Okay.
Amended
Yes.
motion.
Zach, you okay with that?
No, it's still approving the draft. It's not approving the release.
No, it's approval of the release.
So if I
That's
may
not the
suggest-
words I just heard repeated. The words I heard repeated match the agenda exactly.
No, it says, I'm sorry to interrupt through the chair. It's ordered that the release of the draft for public comment is following the meeting is hereby approved.
I think the confusion, if I may through the chair, is the words release for public comment need to be moved up in the sentence. So approve the release of for public comment, the draft groundwater sustainability plan developed by the technical
Okay.
team and technical advisory committee. Is
The
that
release for public
that
comment.
satisfy your concerns, Zach?
Okay. Thanks, Amber.
And
Okay.
the maker of the motion's okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Zach, you're okay with that and approve
I
it?
second the motion.
Okay, so let's have roll call vote.
Director McGuarty,
Yes.
Director White,
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
The motion carries with Director Crane absent.
Crane is present, and I vote yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so we've got through that. And the next item on the agenda is authorization of staff to develop a conceptual plan to be submitted to Department of Water Resources for Round 3 Proposition 1 Groundwater Grant Program Implementation Funds. Laura?
So Emma, I'll take it, and then you can correct me for what I say wrong. So, so basically, there are conceptual plan, and the first one is for Prop 1 coming out, and it's due. This one, it might not be the best fit, but I can see other similar requests coming out, and they are due September 7. So we were thinking if we can get authorization of, in case something that really fits can come to our mind out of the Chapter 4, which is all the project and management action that we are discussing with you, if we can develop a nice and useful conceptual proposal, if we can be authorized to work with the staff and submit it. And again, it would be just a concept proposal coming out from what is in Chapter 4, so nothing that we are reinventing right now. And I don't know, and Dominic, you may correct me. I heard that something similar is coming out for Prop 68, which might be a better fit for the GSA. And I don't know yet the details on the deadline. So it would be just good to get some kind of green light on working on concept proposal. And again, it's not the full final submission. It's just ideas.
So we would have a chance to review this before you submit it, I'm sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if I may,
but it's, yeah, the problem is the deadline, right?
So these are the concept proposals are like pre-applications to the application. So this is just DWR soliciting information, from my understanding, on what types of projects will be applied for, how much funding will be requested, and the reason that we're asking for authorization to do this, because we've been working on the GSP development, and we haven't had a lot of time to review this NOI. And once the draft is released for public comment, we can shift our focus to looking at this. I don't know if we will end up applying for anything under the Prop 1, because as Laura said, the Prop 68 is much more relative to the GSA. But we would like the authorization to take a look at it and see if we should submit sort of a pre-application to DWR. And there won't be another GSA board meeting until after the deadline for these concept proposals. So you would be able to review it after submittal, but without holding a special meeting, there would be no way to approve it prior to submittal.
Yeah, right.
Again, the grant applications aren't due until the spring, so there would be a chance for the board to look at the full grant application.
Okay, so is there anybody who wants to add to the discussion? Board members?
I have a question.
Sure.
What pays for this work to do this?
Okay, we would do it just on our free time.
Okay. You have that?
No, I think it really comes directly out of Chapter 4, and so for the concept, it's really that would be, obviously we will not charge it on any of the grant that we have right now, but it kind of comes naturally out of what you will see in Chapter 4.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Board members?
I have a comment, which is it's great that everyone is keeping a heads up on these opportunities when they pop up, because this will be an important part of our long-term approach.
Are there any
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
any questions or comments from the general public?
I'm wondering if Dominic from DWR, is he still on here?
Yeah, I'm on. Sorry, I just wasn't sure if you had a specific question. I didn't want to cut in front of any board members.
So Laura asked, I think, if you have any idea, because the Prop 68 seems more relevant to the GSA, if you have any idea if there will be a similar solicitation for that in the near future, if you have any idea.
Yeah, so basically, Dominic, I heard that from other DWR representative that there will be another concept proposal for you guys to get an idea of what people will be asking for. And I think the first thing I heard is that it was coming out this month, but I'm not sure. And maybe it's not gonna happen. I just would like to keep our doors open, and maybe you have more information.
Not yet. I'm talking to my supervisor on Teams because I hadn't heard that pre-solicitation.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely will be having the applications due in spring for implementation. And I'm not surprised to hear this because I mean, twofold. I think one, it's helpful. Like the last round was very competitive, and I believe this one will be too. And so having a sense of what projects and funding needs there are. I think also probably the reason they're gathering this is due to all the money that the legislature just passed. So it's maybe seeing like where could we beef up current grant projects, or grant programs. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at my supervisor's chat. She also hadn't heard about this pre-submittal, so I'm sorry that I'm kind of in the dark on this one.
That's fine. And I know that you guys, you have a lot of on your plate. So I heard in other basins that there is this possibility. I'm not saying that it's happening, but it's exactly for the reason that you mentioned. Like they just want to kind of taste a little bit the room and see who's gonna ask for what. And it's where they basically, I have been told that not only big capital projects can be funded, but also the data collection can be funded through some of Prop 68. And I think it's because of the extra budget. So we can wait and, you know, see what happens. But I'm a little worried that maybe if something comes out and has the same deadline as September 7th, so before any other board meeting, might be good. It's only a concept, so it's something that can be changed, and it's just for DWR to feel and have an idea of what's coming down the road, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely keep you updated as soon as I get an update on any new grant programs. Like, obviously, this is very fresh, so to speak, so they're still working on our regional assistance office on putting together a fact sheet for us to share. Yeah, it's totally possible that you heard from someone higher up some news that just hasn't trickled down yet because it's not official yet. But I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to share on this. I mean, we did talk yesterday in the TAC meeting about the importance of including those projects, and it sounds like you're on track to have them in your GSP. That's kind of like the biggest thing that stands out to me. But yeah, I'm sorry, I wish I had more for you. As soon as I do, and I think I said this yesterday too, as soon as we get that fact sheet together, I'll be sharing it. But I think, yeah, you're probably getting the information just a bit slightly ahead of me, maybe.
I don't know. Everybody's giving me different information, Dominic, I think.
Yeah, but my supervisor is a region coordinator for our entire region, and she also hadn't heard of this kind of pre-solicitation. But I don't want to be giving the board advice one way or another. It probably can't hurt to have a sense of what you would want to apply for next spring. But I mean, that's obviously a decision you all will make, whatever's best for you. But yeah, if you have any other questions, sorry, hopefully I can answer them.
I really like the concept of pre-proposals, because to develop a full-blown proposal is a lot of work. And if you can conceptually get the proposal put together for review and make the first cut. That's way better than, coming up with a 20-page proposal, which takes a whole week worth of work by the time that you get everything done and get it reviewed and checked off by all the appropriate people. So I hope they do follow that format.
Okay, and I'll share that feedback as well. That's helpful to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from years of writing pre-proposals to California Department of Food and Agriculture and the UC Sustainable Ag Program and many others. And the pre-proposals were really helpful for researchers to use their time wisely. And if they're conceptually we're really going down the wrong road, it's nice to know early on before you've invested a lot of time. So.
If I may, through the chair, I also wanted to bring attention to the member agencies of the board and also any members of the public that are here, that if there are projects of their agencies that may not be projects of the full GSA, that this may be a time that they would want to look at also submitting under this before this deadline for those projects.
Okay, before I guess we need to have some direction from the board on this, right? We do.
Our recommended action is to authorize staff to develop a concept proposal if I guess if we deem it necessary after looking more at the details, unless you want to give us more specific direction on that.
Proposals from board members?
Move the recommended action.
Do we have a second?
Jack, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, well, let's have a roll call.
Dr. McGarty?
Yes?
Dr. Crane?
Aye.
Dr. White?
Yes.
Dr. Robinson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you very much. So next on the agenda is the discussion and possible direction on the public meeting to be held on July 15th, 2021. Does anybody have any weather forecasts for temperature?
It should be better because I say that it's so awful now till Tuesday, and then Thursday should be a little better, hopefully. Anyway, I think we just wanted to discuss a bit with you on how we are planning to organize this meeting because it's open air. So there will not be a formal presentation with a PowerPoint because obviously it's impossible to really see it. So what we did, we developed some poster with kind of general material about what this plan is about, and the idea is really just to explain what it's in the plan without going into any detail in terms of numbers or the minimum threshold or whatever. Now it's more like just explaining to the public why the GSA is doing this and what's the requirement. And so the idea is really to have kind of station with different posters and give a quick introduction with a general Sigma outline. So what is all this about? And then describe a little bit the sustainability indicators that we developed and we discussed with you guys and with the TAC. And then mostly asking for comments and questions and explaining that the draft will go out in August and will be available for public comments. We really want to make everybody aware that they have their opportunity to comment in a written format, and then that's pretty much how we are thinking of doing that. We asked yesterday at the TAC meeting for TAC members to participate. So because it's nice if it's not just the technical team there providing explanation, but maybe also some members of the TAC that really were part of this process. It's a little bit of the local feedback, which is very important. And yeah, this is kind of what we are thinking about, a sort of, I would call it almost like an open house. And we did it in other basins, and it worked out nicely because people can go back to the poster, recheck the maps. It's not like a presentation that comes and goes, and then the map is gone. And so hopefully people will show up. We need to show some participation. So you have to tell your neighbors to come.
So the plan is to hold it in Redwood Valley, right? And
Yep.
And the park in Redwood Valley. So Lions Park. So my only comment is you can almost guarantee if it's a public meeting, people are going to be asking about cannabis and groundwater use in Redwood Valley because that's a hot topic. And I just want you to be prepared to address that because people are going to want to know. What we're proposing under our ordinance is that anybody who drills a well to supply cannabis will have to do a hydrological study of the wells immediately around them, just so you know, because we have a lot of concern that the aquifer in much of Redwood Valley is not that strong. So we're very concerned about impacting wells that are weak to begin with, and if someone's going to be pumping them hard, the impact that it would have. So think about that. I'm going to try to be there and answer, try to address it because it's not specifically in our GSP, but it's something that the Board of Supervisors is getting a lot of concern about with the expansion of the cannabis industry. And I'd like to point out to everybody who's here that the expansion is largely illegal at this point. It's not a legal expansion. And I'm feeling defensive because everybody thinks the Board of Supervisors is pushing for more cannabis, and we're not. We're pushing to regulate the cannabis that we have, and that's a huge difference. So I expect if we have a public meeting, there will be questions about that.
Yeah, and I don't know, Glenn, if you agree, because I'm dealing with the same issues pretty much everywhere. So what we are kind of saying is that the plan as it is right now in the water budget, the model, it's really based on the best available data and best available science. And right now, what we can do in terms of cannabis is more projection or estimates, but it's not that we have real number. So that can be something that can be included in the 5 years update if we get the numbers that we need. But the plan as it is right now is really based on what we have. And that's because I understand that there are always comments saying, oh, but you have to include that. I say, yeah, but it's really projections right now and estimates.
And I would ask our consultants if you have ideas going forward for how we might better manage information from new wells, because one of the things we're really struggling with is we don't know very much about all the wells that we have in Mendocino County. And if this organization could do the county a lot of good if we would come up with a way of tracking new additional information, setting a template so that as we do add wells, we have some sense of where they are and what their potential impacts are on our overall groundwater management. I don't know if that's addressed in the plan somewhere, but it's that we should if we haven't.
So basically, Glenn, what we did, we added from the last version of Chapter 4, we added a management action that we really called well inventory. And I think we discussed it with different groups, and everybody seemed to be on board with the idea of having a better understanding of which wells are out there, which wells are really pumping, and an estimate of what they are serving, and really if then something, this will give us a base to start with. And if something goes wrong, let's say that the aquifer in Redwood Valley for some reason really becomes really, really low, then we can start looking at, okay, what has been added to what was already there in 2021, for example, and think about it. So a well inventory, it's something that I was even suggesting if there are possible funding coming from different direction is something that it would be really critical to do right away. And it would help also the current, let's say, legal users, because they will kind of have a policy insurance for the future. So if something bad happens, might be because somebody has drilled or is using water not in a legal way.
Any other questions or comments about the upcoming meeting? Any thoughts from the board members?
Just, there's going to be a taco truck with free tacos, right?
There will be something. We'll have to think about it, but there will be something. So you can tell everybody to come for dinner or something like that.
That'll bring them in.
So I would request from Devin and also Beth that you help us publicize this a little bit. If you can do an email blast on it, if you need a template for it, Laura and water agency staff can help.
I think the flyer is already out. Andrew and the staff already worked on it with Laurel also. So it's in both English and Spanish. And just needs to be kept sending it out, and that's it.
Yeah, Glenn, I shared it on Facebook yesterday, and I'm happy to email that out probably this weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we've been distributing it through the drought preparedness campaign, and a few weeks back we did a drought drop-in where we gave away free buckets and supplies with the RCD, and we gave out flyers in the buckets. I can't remember how many. Deborah might know, she's still on the call, how many buckets we gave out, but a great deal. So,
I think it was 500.
Well, thank you for that, by the way. That was tremendous effort, and really appreciate everything that's going on for people trying to help with our drought situation.
You could also mention it in our task force meeting today, Glenn.
Good. All right. So our final item is, let's see. I think are we okay with item F? Direct staff on topics to be included in the public meeting presentation. I think we're good on that. So then finally is general discussion on the ongoing 2021 drought crisis. So at 4 o'clock, we're going to have a drought task force meeting. And again, just in a nutshell, as we look around the county, we're in various states of problem. So the coast continues to be a very big concern for me, as I outlined for you. Fort Bragg and Mendocino in that corridor have already a lot of dry wells, and Fort Bragg's water supply is looking pretty weak. And coming up with a solution for that's going to be really, really difficult. So it includes possibly bringing water by the skunk train from Willits, but there's kind of two issues with that. One is that Willits is in some controversy now that they've tapped into groundwater, and there's places in Little Lake Valley that are going dry. Even though they did an environmental impact report on it, not everyone's confident in the report. And so asking the city of Willits to give up groundwater to send to the coast could be politically difficult. And then there's also the issue of, can the skunk train actually stay intact, or will the trestles collapse as we send 80,000 pound loads of water across it? So these are all things that are unknowns. The other option being maybe to bring barges of water from Portland or from San Francisco, treat them at Noyo Harbor and send them into Fort Bragg's water system, which is set up pretty well to actually get water as far south as Simpson Lane, where it can be loaded on a truck and then go to the town of Mendocino. So these are some of the things they're thinking about on the coast. Other coastal communities seem to be a little bit more intact in terms of their water systems. Point Arena seems to be better. Wallala has some challenges, but they're not in near the emergency that Fort Bragg and Mendocino are. There's numerous little mutual water companies along the way that I think also have challenges. We're not really getting reports back from them yet, but I suspect that given that they depend on surface water, that they probably have issues. So I would say right now the coast is our biggest concern from county government perspective of making sure that we have adequate water. I think we all know about the interior of Mendocino County. We're generally in pretty good shape for people. We're not so good shape for some of our ag users whose water rights have been curtailed. We'll muddle through the best we can, and there's no question that agriculture is going to be impacted this year by drought all over the state. And I know that the State Water Resources Control Board tells me they have about 17,000 water curtailments potentially to deliver to everybody in the interior part of the state. So it's going to be bad. It's going to be a really bad year for ag, just simply because there's no water. Does anybody want to add anything else to that cheerful picture? Board members, any comments?
I was not aware that the tunnel had been reopened.
It hasn't. So it turns out that where the tunnel is, I guess it still allows them to get to the water intake at the Noyle River for Fort Bragg. And there's a place that's about 300 feet from where they could offload a train right into their water intake. So it'd be very easy for them to rig up a water line that would allow them to unload water off the train and into their intake system, treat it, and then put it into the regular municipal system. So, conceptually, it could work really well.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just whether or not the hardware can hold up, because we're talking about some of those trestles were built before any of us were born. So I just wonder how structurally sound they are. So they're working on that. The bad news is this is all like a 60-day window that we have to have some solutions. We're going to make some changes in emergency ordinances that will allow people to put tanks into the town of Mendocino without going through either a coastal or historical review board. So they're temporary, but if you get a truckload of water, you have to be able to hold about 4,000 gallons to make it make sense. So people need to be able to set up tanks really quickly. And if they went through a normal permitting process, it might take them over a year. So we're trying to come up with an emergency ordinance that would allow them to, at least during the drought emergency, have a water storage facility for their individual houses. They may share it with the neighbors, but there has to be some way of increasing capacity for Mendocino, for the city of Mendocino. Questions or comments? Yeah, so my cattle neighbors around me are selling off animals because of the feed and water situation. So I know its impact is going deep into our county, and some of our bigger landowners who normally get by with pretty minimal water this year, they're not going to get by at all. So it's a tough situation for us. Other comments? Yeah, well.
Glenn, can I just add to what you said? Thank you for the update. And, as we can all probably agree, it sounds really depressing. So I really want to encourage everyone to think about, as leaders in our community, how we can help people understand what they can actually do to make a difference. I'm working with our farmers that are customers of the flood control district. I know Devon's always working with her constituents. But municipal suppliers and elected officials who represent constituency, if thinking about how you can share with individuals and businesses how that they need to serve and how to do so, and letting people know that we as community leaders are finding ways on a bigger scale to bring in water in emergency situations, to better manage what we have, and to look forward into the future to prevent this from happening again by creative management, such as we're doing here at the GSA. But empowering people with knowledge of what they can do in a day-to-day way is really helpful. And yes, we have varying suppliers who have, various restrictions, and just encouraging folks to be really clear with their customers what they're expected to do in this time.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Beth, and I agree with that. The thing that I think about, and then the discussions on the coast where people were saying, well, Hawaii and Alaska, they don't use a lot of water. People take bucket showers, and it could get that bad here in Mendocino, and basically they need to have about 75,000 gallons of water a day to run the town. And it's important to all of us. I just want you to understand that, we talk about income from cannabis as maybe being important to Mendocino County, but the town of Mendocino, between transit occupancy tax and sales tax, generates about almost $8 million a year. And cannabis tax so far, the best we've ever done is $6 million. And, we put a lot of time and resources in trying to get the cannabis program off the ground. And I don't know how successful we are with it, but we already have Mendocino and it's already running. And I'm feeling very strongly we need to support our coastal constituents and do what we can to make sure that they don't end up into yet another big disaster after last year from COVID being shut down. So I feel very strong commitment to try to find some water solution for them. But I just want you to all know how serious it is. So how we solve that, I'm not sure. So anyway, that's all I have for you. We also have time for director reports if anybody would like to add to our discussion today.
If I may, through the chair, Dominic has his hand up. I don't know if he had something to add to that last one or if that was from earlier.
Okay, oh, no, I'm not sure if you said this and I didn't hear it, but just to really quickly announce that today, Governor Newsom expanded the emergency proclamation to 50 of the 58 counties in the state. And he also issued an executive order calling for voluntary reduction of water usage by 15% across the board.
Okay, that's good information. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I can't see the full screen, so if I'm missing somebody, it's not deliberate.
I can just report that at our flood control meeting, our board reaffirmed that we wanted to continue our participation in the GSA for at least the next 5 years.
That's good news. Thank you very much for that, Al. Anyone else? Any other directors' reports? Okay, so we also have a space here for public comments that are not on the agenda. If someone would like to add anything. Okay, well, thank everyone for their time and attention, and thanks our staff and our consultants for continuing to provide us with good technical information and making these meetings orderly. And with that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much. And when will we see you next? Amber, when is our next meeting?
I believe the next meeting is scheduled not until October 14th. Although we think there could possibly be a need to call a special meeting before that, maybe in September sometime, but I think we're going to hold off for now to see if that's necessary.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, and of course, we'll see you next week for those of you who participate in our public meeting. And one last comment: if you hear a lot of rustling and strange noises, it's my puppy I brought in from outside because it's so hot, and she's 5 months old and she's busy carrying out papers underneath my desk. So